This really is a historic event. Thanks for being part of history with all of us. And I'm incredibly, incredibly honored to be here. I realized, that to meet such and to work with so many wonderful writers. I got on a plane and just got in from LA last night, and I'm just here partaking in just the brilliance of these other writers with which I share. This is called To the New World. Damn it! I thought Asian hair was supposed to be easy. Millie Wong was on the verge of tears. Tangled and frizzy. Shouldn't that be straight? She yanked at her brush. Maybe it was some hidden female genetic thing. Her sister had perfect hair, and her mother had perfect hair too. You're so stupid. You don't even pass to your own hair. You're just a fucking tranny freak. Sharp pain happened as several strands of her hair snapped and brought her to reality. Okay. Calm down. Come on, Millie. Deep breaths. You slept with wet hair. That's all. Deep breaths. Okay. No yelling today. Breathe. Think of Grandma. She steadied herself, took smaller strands of hair, and brushed gently from the ends. When she was done, she repeated the process with her straightening iron. Feathers of steam floated off the iron, leaving her hair shimmering like ribbons. Thank God. She peeked at the clock and shook her head. Okay, getting ready was bad enough on any Sunday morning, but this was her grandma's birthday. For Millie, her grandmother's birthday was not just remembering her passing. It was her most important family gathering, even if it was just between her and her grandma's picture on the kitchen table. Back when she was Victor, see, Millie had been her favorite grandson. Of course, Millie had no idea how her grandmother would have reacted to the transition. She probably would have been horrified. But one could always imagine otherwise. And besides, since her death 2 years ago, she was the only person in her family that Millie could come out to without fear of being disowned. And today, Millie was going to the farmer's market to find something for her grandmother, something special. She peeked outside and frowned. See, it was another stupid LA winter day. Not enough drizzle to call it rain, but enough to spoil all the work she just put in her hair. But there it was. So she sighed and grabbed her purse. She trudged past the greasy Thai restaurant to the crosswalk, where a tow truck stopped to let her pass. The driver nodded as she hurried down the street. And Millie Wong smiled for the first time all day. Because you see, that truck driver would have never, ever stopped for Victor. It's not easy almost getting run over by cars and trucks, pretending not to see you, or not even trying to disguise they don't care. And that's how it was for Victor Wong, a nondescript Asian boy. Afterthought, non-thought. Wasn't so much just being hated, it was being invisible. It was going to the mall and having the store salesperson help the next customer. It was waiting too long to get a table at a restaurant. Heck, but for Millie, cars would stop, doors would open, people would smile, even flirt sometimes. Millie knew about objectification. I mean, you don't grow up being Asian and not hear all sorts of things about why Susie Wong and Memoirs of a Geisha are either racist or trash. But after a life of being ignored, was it wrong to like people being nice to you? By the time Millie wandered down Sunset to Ivar and turned into the farmer's market, the skies had cleared, and a clean offshore wind mixed with the familiar smells of car exhaust and blended with fruits and vegetables and the sweaty patchouli. Almost instinctively, Millie studied the other women, how they were walking and speaking. Her parents lost their accents by mimicking TV and radio, and one of Millie's main reasons for listening to KPFK was to practice Nina Totenberg, NPR News, Washington. But there was nothing better than watching people live, catching snippets of conversation that conveyed gender, ethnicity, even social standing. I'd like a mocha latte with that soy milk. What's a good recipe for Hungarian peppers? Listening to conversations swirl around her, she purchased 2 heirloom tomatoes, which were strangely available even this out of season. But it wasn't a great day at the market. The produce was pretty sketch, and she tried not to judge some sorry excuse for fresh basil. I mean, like, we're not in San Gabriel, we're in Hollywood, and it's organic, okay? It's organic. And then she saw it. A puffy loaf of sweetbread made with milk and sugar and butter. It was soft, kind of like a steam bun. Her grandmother had loved that sort of bread, especially towards the end when she couldn't chew very well. Putting the loaf into her bag and preparing to pay, Millie remembered the hospital room. She remembered pulling off small bits of steam bun and feeding them to her grandmother with fragrant lukewarm tea. Suddenly, a loud voice brought her back to Hollywood. "Yo, Millie, what's up?" Her name was Sierra, and to Millie, she looked it. She seemed tall and solid as a mountain, with snow-capped eyes, rarely blinked. See, she was one of those dykes that didn't just want to take back the night. She wanted to grab and throttle it. When Millie first met Sierra, she was a loud voice from above complaining about the excessive sweetness of Fuji apples. Millie was awestruck. How could she be so loud and yet so completely female? Sierra had laughed when Millie first asked her this. She said Asian women were like those cute little beep beep horns on a Prius. Sure, they're cute, but the big truck crowding your lane isn't gonna move. You gotta sound like you mean it. And whatever it was, Sierra meant it. She had never been comfortable, Millie had never been comfortable with Sierra's take on Asians. She knew some pretty obnoxious Asian women. But she had been happy to make a new friend. Sierra warmed to Millie quickly after afternoons of homemade scones and political protests. And she infused Millie with opinions on nuclear power, on meat, on patriarchy, and all that stuff. Then during one conversation about why the fuck do we need penises, Millie confessed she was trans. Sierra stopped, and Millie wondered if she was going to get up and walk away. Then Sierra busted out laughing. I knew there was something about you. I mean, really, I couldn't tell. Really, I mean, you're beautiful, but something was different. I mean, shit. Millie started laughing too, and then came all the usual Trans 101 questions, which Millie tried her best to answer. Sierra listened, then pronounced Millie was okay, because she didn't feel that male energy coming off her. This made Millie feel happy and safe, especially since Sierra was pretty buff, not somebody she wanted to see mad. But from then on, it wasn't the same. Oh, Sierra was still as friendly as ever, but Millie could sense the difference. Sierra started treating Millie much less like possible dating material and much more like a younger brother-sister. She was happy to tell Millie what it meant to be a socially and politically responsible woman, but also made it clear that with trannies, there was always male privilege to root out. You can't go out alone at night or walk into any old sports bar without fear anymore, you know? Coming from Asian parents who taught her to avoid large groups of drunken white men, Millie had never actually been to a sports bar, but she nodded and listened, careful not to interrupt her friend. Today, Sierra focused on the bread in Millie's bag. So, you're still supporting the dairy industry, huh? Millie trembled. She had been caught with non-vegan bread. Of course it wasn't vegan. It was her grandmother's favorite type of American bread. But if it wasn't, Millie probably wouldn't have gotten it because she had been thinking about becoming a vegan. She was really sad. She had been born with male privilege, and maybe by being vegan, she could in some way be closer to the woman she wanted to be, a caring woman, a strong woman, a vegan woman. It's my grandma's birthday, and it was her favorite, she finally ventured. But Sierra continued, patriarchy is patriarchy. Do you know that dairy cows end up in McDonald's hamburgers? They're genetically engineered to produce milk, but once their production falls, they're just killed. I mean, it's worse than what happens to beef cattle in some ways. I mean, it's like the Tibetan women. They have nothing but their stories and weaving, but the men in the Chinese government want to take that away from them too. Millie knew better than to interrupt, though she wondered what Tibetan women had to do with dairy cattle and the loaf of bread. But she knew that Sierra was active on so many fronts that sometimes she made connections which might seem just impenetrable to others. Plus, any argument on her part would have simply triggered accusations of male privilege, and in this case, of possible connections with the Chinese government. Millie nodded to Sierra and put the sweet loaf back. As they walked away, Sierra gushed about this great spot just outside Palm Springs with an authentic Japanese Zen garden. Millie mentioned she might like to go, but Sierra said, no, it's a women-only space. You know, women? But I thought you might appreciate the Zen part, being Asian and all, very feng shui. Again, Millie nodded. She tried not to dwell on women-only spaces or why someone would mention a Japanese Zen garden in the same space as feng shui. She remembered that she had made the mistake of talking about Asian issues to Sierra before. Sierra told her, men are men. Chinese men and Japanese men both abused women, like those women in World War II, or was that Korea? Whatever. It's all the same oppression. Millie had thought about her grandma escaping Vietnam in a sodden, rotting boat, and she wondered if it really was the same. And today was her birthday. Hey, you okay? Sierra's words shook her out of her thoughts. That woman-only stuff didn't bug you, did it? Oh, you can tell me. I know all about tranny issues. I'm still friends with you, right? She tried to smile, but it wouldn't come this time. Sierra noticed and put her arm around her. Listen, doll, I've been there. I know what it's like. I know about trans women. Hell, one of my girlfriends went and transitioned on me once. Millie looked up. Oh, yeah, it was rough. One day she was she, then the next day, I don't know. I was confused, I'll tell you that. Of course, I made sure everyone knew that James had been Rebecca and that I was still a dyke. I didn't want people thinking I went straight. No way, I'm never going to be straight. Sierra's voice seemed to tremble before she caught herself. James was so mad, but what could I do? Hey, it's okay if she wants to be a guy or something, but don't push that shit on me. Maybe you just weren't meant for each other, Millie offered. Yeah, no shit. James was great, though. Sierra blinked and coughed, tried to turn it into a chuckle. Trans women, what's up with that? Millie didn't know what to say. She didn't even think of correcting her with the trans man. Instead, before she could stop herself, she blurted, well, I think you're great. Then wondering why she said that, she fidgeted again and said, I have to get home now. I gotta go back to my grandma. Sierra didn't notice. Cool beans. I'd like to meet her one day. Sounds like a great woman. Gotta run. Call me later, okay? Ciao. Sierra winked, turned, then stopped. Suddenly, she spun around and hugged Millie like she was made of clouds. Then she gave an awkward little half smile halfway. She was off. Millie stood there waiting for the city to stop spinning. She considered going back to get the bread, but she wasn't sure about male privilege and what to do if Sierra came back. So she took her heirloom tomatoes, along with some rather nice parsnips, and walked home. As she walked home, Millie again noticed the politeness of the drivers. She didn't need Sierra to tell her about fetishizing Asian women, but all Victor had ever gotten were sneers and indifference. It never seemed like much of a privilege. Was it wrong to feel good about being nodded to or having a door opened? What about having a car stop? Didn't they also stop for her grandmother? The same grandmother who would have been killed had she stayed in Vietnam? In the kitchen, Millie took off her shoes. She studied her picture of Grandma. She retrieved the vegetables from her shopping bag and noticed that they were a little smaller and looked a little tougher than they had at the market. Tomatoes? Parsnips? Parsnips? Gazing at them, she started to cry. You stupid! It's Grandma's birthday and you didn't even bring home the sweetbread. She had bought tomatoes and parsnips, and Grandma didn't even know what parsnips were. Grandma, see, only 3 years ago, they were strolling through San Gabriel, looking for cheap groceries and steamed pork buns. Grandma would tell them stories about Vietnam, about coming to this wonderful country after the blood and the pirates, about being so crowded in a boat she could only sit because there was not enough space to lie down. Millie looked at the parsnips. She tried to imagine what Grandma would say, not just about transition, but this whole vegan business and somehow how it could have all related to womanhood. Heck, what would she say about the farmer's market when at the Ranch 99 store the vegetables are half price and twice as fresh? And then Millie stopped. In a day, she opened her freezer and dug around. The 2 pork buns she found there weren't from Providence. They were from being Asian and having a freezer full of ethnic food. She paused. worried about backsliding to meet, about oppression and male children and Sierra, but with Grandma's picture looking right at her. She put the buns in the microwave. Now, of course, they weren't from her grandma. That would have been weird. But they were from her last visit to her parents. "Why is your hair so long?" they asked. "Who's going to marry you like that?" She had been waiting for the right time to tell them, knowing it would never come. Still, she was waiting. The microwave beeped, and Millie hesitated before opening it. She put a bun in front of Grandma's picture, then took the other one out and bit. The scalding pork burned her tongue, but instead of bringing tears, the pain brought back memories. There was a sound of spices and aromas and tastes, the rush of family and faces and sounds, and she remembered mooncakes and pork buns and screaming kids and beating her cousins at poker late into the night. She remembered violin from Suzuki and math from Kumon, smuggling bags of dried cuttlefish into the movie theater and Costco beef jerky into Disneyland. She remembered all of this. If I come out to the family, I'll lose everything. But it's more than that. I don't want my family to be laughed at. For all my mother's friends to say, "Look, there's the one with the freak for the son." Yet I can never go back to living alive. Suddenly, Millie realized something in a way she never had before. See, once in the hospital, Millie had told Grandma that she had been very brave to leave home for America. To her surprise, Grandma started laughing. It was the same laugh Millie remembered when she was little and first saw her first steamed crab. She had screamed that a big red spider had crawled into the cooking pot, and Grandma just laughed. She laughed again. "Brave? No, not brave. You do because you have to. Oh, you give nice things up, but maybe you find new things too. I left so much family behind," Grandma said. "They called me crazy, but they couldn't leave and I couldn't stay. Of course I miss home, but look at my life here. We didn't have Ranch 99 supermarket in Vietnam, you know." As Millie remembered Grandma's laugh, she started to cry again, but not from sorrow. She felt a new connection with her grandmother and with the rest of her family as she saw her own life and identity for the first time as an immigrant. It didn't matter whether the distance was measured in miles or communities. It was still a long and violent journey. It was still full of people who would call you brave, people who would call you crazy, and people who would never call you again. Brave, not brave. You do because you have to. Millie looked at the parsnips, seeming sad and out of place on the countertop. She thought about Sierra, about her other friends too, gay, queer, trans, goths, poets, friends who sometimes just didn't understand but who really meant well. Oh, you give things up, but sometimes maybe you find new things too. She held her bun, flipped her hair from her eyes, and nodded to Grandma. "To the new world!" She chuckled as she imagined Sierra's reaction to her and her pork buns. Then she took another bite and stopped thinking altogether. And when she was done, she smiled and sighed and decided she might call Sierra in a while, maybe get some coffee. Yeah, she'd like that. I mean, she seemed like she needed to talk. Besides, maybe Millie could finally tell her the difference between trans women and trans men. Maybe one day she might even ask her out shopping at Ranch 99, who's to say? And with a practicality that would have made her grandma smile, Millie covered the other bun and put it on the kitchen counter, not on the freezer. The pork bun had been kept well all this time, but once thawed and warm and steaming, it was best a thing to be experienced as soon as possible, like life itself, even as doubts and accusations and misunderstandings fade when faced with something real.